Dragon Ball Lao Su is the god of destruction. Chapter 21-40. Chapter 21. Start cultivation, time and space energy. Whis looked serious at the determined god of destruction. Since the god of destruction wants to learn the control of time energy, it will have to suffer a bit, because the law of time is not so easy to learn. There was nothing in Whis' serious words that frightened the god of destruction. Let's go to another dimension. After finishing speaking, Whis knocked the scepter against the void. Ding! After a crisp sound, the space in the void suddenly collapsed. A white alien dimension appeared in front of the god of destruction. This god of space destruction is very familiar. When he was not very strong hundreds of thousands of years ago, he would often accidentally smash the space. At this time, Whis will restore him. However, the god of destruction has also entered this different dimension many times. In fact, these different dimensions are the kind of rooms in the spiritual time room. The flow rate inside is also different. If the god of destruction wants to understand the energy of time and space, the best way is to practice in different time and space, so that you can have more understanding of time and space. However, there are also some very dangerous places in these different dimensions. I will try my best to avoid the god of destruction. Whis rarely spoke to the god of destruction with a solemn expression, which let the god of destruction know that Whis was not joking now. I know, do you see me as such a timid person? Zhao Yi spat at Whis. No, god of destruction is the most powerful in my eyes. Whis quickly complimented. In that case, let's get started. Then the two stepped into the alien space one after the other. As soon as the two arrived, the space crack behind them slowly closed. This alien dimension is the most suitable space for the current Lord God of Destruction to cultivate from the tens of millions closest to us. The time difference between him is 10 days here and 1 day outside. After Whis finished speaking, he came to an open space in front of him and used his cane to mark an area. The god of destruction was staring at the pure white space around him in a daze. Where does his energy come from in such a hot climate? According to the law of conservation of energy. Anyway, there is no source of light and heat. But Zhao Yi is not thinking about these now. What are you doing, Whis? Seeing that not far away, the god of destruction, Whis, who was writhing in circles with his scepter, asked aloud in doubt. However, Whis ignored the god of destruction and continued to draw circles, watching him turn a distance of 1 centimeter in a minute, making the god of destruction a pain in the ass. But he didn't bother him either. I've finally drawn it. The time-space formation is really troublesome. Wiping the sweat on his forehead, Whis smiled and looked towards the god of destruction. Lord God of Destruction, this is my own original space-time formation. If you use it to understand the energy of space-time, you can get twice the result with half the effort. The arrogant words of Whis made the god of destruction puzzled for a while. You're the only one who will study the formation technique. Is it reliable? Seeing the suspicious gaze of the god of destruction, Whis was rarely angry. Master God of Destruction, no matter how I say it, I am a genius of the angel family. Is it easy to spend hundreds of millions of years to come up with a formation? You still doubt others. As he spoke, Whis burst into tears. Damn it, I'm just asking, where did Whis come from so fragile? Looking at Whis crying, God of Destruction could only fly over and pat him on the shoulder. Okay, I'm just talking for fun, I don't mean that. After hearing the god of destruction, Whis slowly raised his head. Unexpectedly, this kid didn't cry at all. Ho, Lord God of Destruction actually coaxes people. Looking at the grinning whisper god of destruction, he instantly felt like a stupid donkey. Bum, I'm about to practice, hurry up and tell me how to comprehend. The god of destruction, who kicked Whis away with 1 foot, walked to the so-called space-time formation and sat down cross-legged. Whis, who rubbed his ass, walked up to the god of destruction and started talking to the god of destruction. The only way to understand the energy of time and space is to feel the passage of time yourself, during which you can't have any distractions. Another advantage of practicing in this way is that you can simultaneously practice the ultimate mind power. After Whis finished speaking, the god of destruction closed his eyes and started his journey of understanding. And Whis also sat next to the god of destruction and watched the progress of the god of destruction. Hundreds of years have passed in a blink of an eye. The god of destruction, who had been sitting for hundreds of years, suddenly frowned one day. Weiss also reacted from the stealing. This feeling is time and space energy. The god of destruction is so talented, and it took me hundreds of years to get started. It took me hundreds of thousands of years. Weiss put down the cake in his hand in surprise and walked to the god of destruction. At this moment, the god of destruction slowly opened his eyes. Master God of Destruction, you finally woke up. The Loon family thinks you are going crazy. Before Weiss could finish speaking, he saw a fist with white light hitting him in the face. Again. Whis looked at the silver-white hole of the god of destruction. He didn't know where he was. After several hundred years of meditating, the god of destruction had completely mastered the second-order free-spirited skill. Not only that, but the god of destruction's combat power has increased again in the past few hundred years. To sum up, Weiss found that he was going to be beaten. Time and space imprisoned. It's a pity that Weiss still has the ultimate move in hand. As soon as the space-time energy is used, time stops instantly. What caused Weiss to break into a cold sweat was that the fist of the god of destruction had come to his eyes, which meant that as long as Weiss' speed was a little slower, he would be slapped in the face. The god of destruction is too terrifying. I can't mess with him after watching it. Weiss hurriedly ran behind the god of destruction and made a gesture of his own. Time and space flow. Boom. Just after the time-space confinement was released, this alien dimension was suddenly shattered by a punch from the god of destruction. Chapter 22. 1,000 years ago, the legendary Super Saiyan. Looking at the shattered alien dimension in front of him, the god of destruction pouted in disdain. The thief Weiss has even used the energy of time and space. It seems that he can't take my attack with the ultimate free will. Thinking of this, the god of destruction smiled. The god of destruction is really violent. It seems that they have to redraw a space-time formation. Weiss rubbed his forehead helplessly. Don't be busy yet. How much time did I spend meditating? The god of destruction stopped Weiss, who was about to open the second dimension. Weiss was stunned for a moment, then thought seriously. The god of destruction has brought about 240 years in the alien dimension just now. Converted to the real world, it seems to be about 24 years. Weiss was stunned when he said that. Nani, god of destruction took only 24 years to realize the energy of time and space. At this moment, Weiss realized that the god of destruction already possesses the existence of destructive energy. It stands to reason that the god of destruction is 10,000 times more talented than himself, and his comprehension speed will only be the same as himself. But it took him tens of millions of years to realize the energy of time and space. In this way, isn't the talent of the god of destruction tens of billions times higher than his own? Humph. With your scumbag talent, you still want to compare yourself with my god of destruction. Weiss, you are so naive. The god of destruction proudly raised his arrogant head. God of destruction, your nose is up in the sky. Don't be too happy too early. The training after this is the key. According to the speed of god of destruction, if you want to truly understand the laws of time and space like me, at least it will also take 1,000,000 years, because I am already 1,000,000,000,000 years old. I am so sorry. Quote. The way Weiss covered his mouth and snickered made the god of destruction want to hit someone again. It doesn't matter how old you are. I'm going to starve to death. Hurry up and prepare something for me. The god of destruction, who opened the space and returned to the destruction god realm, clutched his stomach and yelled at Weiss. Okay, I'll be here soon. Weiss trotted over quickly, and with a swipe of the scepter in his hand, a large table with a diameter of 100 meters appeared on the open space. The table is filled with all kinds of food, and there are tens of thousands of dishes at a rough calculation. What? That's all. Petty Weiss. After complaining, God of Destruction finally had his first meal in hundreds of years. By the way, what happened to the smuggler? Is he dead? Of course, the God of Destruction is talking about Bardock, and I don't know if Bardock will do anything earth-shattering as a person who travels through time and space. Bardock, he is living a good life now, he is the king of Saiyans, and let him return the Saiyans from Saiyan star to planet and live with the current planet. Non-aggression. Quote. Saying that, Weiss adjusted a picture. The plant star on the screen is not what it used to be. The current plant star has developed into a technological planet in just a few decades. High-rise buildings are everywhere. It's developing so fast, and seeing them get a lot of benefits from Child's spaceship. God of Destruction wiped his mouth with a tissue. By the way, Lord Destruction, there is something you might be interested in. Weiss smiled and nodded at the picture in the void. Immediately, the picture shifted to a high-rise building, and a small baby with red lips and white teeth was lying on a small bed in a magnificent room in the high-rise building. This is... Looking at the tail behind the child's butt, Baru frowned slightly. Isn't this an ordinary Saiyan child? Master God of Destruction, this child is Bardock's son. When he was just born, his combat power reached more than 10,000. Now he has a combat power of 50,000 at 1.5 years old. Whis' words made Koken, the God of Destruction, shrink back. The legendary Super Saiyan, he's actually Bardock's son. In other words, he's Gukong's younger brother. Interesting. The God of Destruction pulled a smile from the corner of his mouth. But God of Destruction, there is one thing that puzzles me. That is, the legendary Super Saiyans from ancient times are descendants of commoner Saiyans, while ordinary Super Saiyans are from royal Saiyans. This kid is a little bit unique. Quote. Oh, that means he's an outlier. Haha, it's fun, let's go and see this kid. When the myth destruction was finished, the tens of thousands of meals in front of him had already been eaten up. I want to go see it too, let's go, God of Destruction. After speaking, the two of them turned into a ray of light and disappeared in the God of Destruction realm. Bardock, what are you going to do about your son? A long-haired female Saiyan stood by the crib of the legendary Super Saiyan and asked Bardock, who was also standing beside him. At this time, Bardock is no longer the idiot he was 40 years ago. Now he is the king of Saiyans, but he is very beautiful. Not only has his strength reached the second level of Super Saiyans, but he has also started Super Saiyans. After that, the combat power soared directly to billions. Even my wife got another one. At this time, the legendary Super Saiyan was born to him and Gukong's stepmother. I don't know if Gukong and Raditz will vomit blood after they find out. Florence is a Super Saiyan that has been circulated among my Saiyans for thousands of years. According to the records, the time when the Super Saiyans appeared was when the earth-shaking changes occurred in my Saiyans. I think he will definitely bring me Saiyan to glory. But Bardock has had one ambition since he was a child, that is, his children must be high-level soldiers, even super soldiers, and he must not let his tragic experience fall on his son. That's why he was so angry when Kakarot and Raditz were born. Although it came 1,000 years ago, after the battle with Childe, his ambition was gone. But at the moment of Florence's birth, this desire was rekindled. Another day has passed, and I feel like I haven't had the cheek to ask Wawa and reward for a long time, so I decided, 2,000 Wawa plus 1 chapter, 500 comments plus 1 chapter, and 5 people's reward plus 1 chapter. Don't cherish salted fish, the liver of salted fish can stand it. Chapter 23. Florence. That means you're going to let him go on like this. The female Saiyan frowned slightly. Florence is just over a year old, and she has already surpassed her own mother, the entire Saiyan race to the heaven, and the only one who can defeat the current Florence is Bardock. But if Bardock was just taking care of Florence, it was inevitable that Florence would go berserk. There is only one result of the runaway, and that is the loss of life. Of course, they are not afraid of Florence killing people at will, but they are afraid of killing themselves. You don't have to worry about this. I have already thought about it. Florence, I will take it to other planets, and then I will teach him until he reaches adulthood, and the planet will be handed over to you. After Bardock finished speaking, he stretched out his arms and hugged Florence, and strode towards the outside. A few minutes later, a spaceship crashed into the sky. The moment Bardock with the child just flew out of the planet, the spaceship suddenly vibrated violently. Boom! After a loud noise accompanied by a violent vibration, the entire spaceship fell silent. What happened? Bardock frowned and said to the spaceship's brain. DDD. The spaceship has reached its destination. DDD. The spaceship has reached its destination. DDD. The spaceship has reached its destination. A rapid prompt sound made Bardock look ugly. What the hell happened? Looking at Florence, who was still sleeping in the compartment, Bardock came to the skylight. What caught the eye was a huge crater. On the other hand, in the operation room, it was shown that he had arrived at his destination. Bardock, long time no see. At this moment, there was a calm, but Bardock's unforgettable voice came from behind. He hurriedly turned around, and what caught his eye was the god of destruction and Wes, whom he had just seen when he arrived on this planet decades ago. So it's you who did it. At this time, Bardock did not know where the matter started and the end. But when he thought that the god of destruction in front of him could allow him to come here in an instant from hundreds of thousands of light years away, Bardock felt vigilant in his heart. You won't think about destroying me again. Bardock sneered, his muscles tense, and he only had a chance to explode with all his strength. You are still so violent. The god of destruction gave a hiss and then walked towards the compartment. Stop, you can't. When Bardock saw the god of destruction's actions, he immediately became angry and was about to explode, but something terrifying happened to him. I can't move anymore. Still the same despair, still the same unable to move. Damn it, I have been practicing hard for decades in order to defeat this so-called god of destruction, why am I still getting the same result? Bardock angrily looked out of the corner of his eye and looked at the god of destruction who walked out with Florence's tail in the compartment. This kid is too good at sleeping. He slept better than me, let the slacker be reincarnated. The god of destruction carried Florence to Whis and said speechlessly. Ho ho ho, the god of destruction thinks too much, who would like to sleep like you? This kid just ransacked because he couldn't control his strength 2 days ago, and now he has no strength, so he is so sleepy. As for you, if you fall asleep, let alone pulling your tail, you won't wake up even if you slap you on the face. Whis' words made the god of destruction blush, is he exaggerating? Whis, wake up this kid. God of destruction is not in the mood to wait for this kid to wake up slowly. With a direct flick of his hand, he threw Florence into Wes's arms, causing Wes to be in a hurry. The god of destruction is not gentle, such a small child is littering. Whis looked at the god of destruction with contempt. Don't talk too much, just do whatever you want, there's a lot of nonsense. The god of destruction found that since he started cultivating Whis, he has been attacking himself every day, making him want to hit him more and more. Master God of Destruction, I won't dare to slap you after your strength surpasses mine. I will slap you more while you can. According to the growth rate of the God of Destruction, Wes knew that the God of Destruction might surpass himself within tens of thousands of years. Tens of thousands of years is the time to take a beauty sleep. Amidst the curses of the God of Destruction, Whis hurriedly pointed his fingertips to the forehead of the child in his arms. After a flash of green light, Florence in Whis' arms slowly opened her eyes. A green light flashed through his young body. However, after encountering the divine power of Whis, the green light slowly fell silent. Huh, where is this place? Hey, who are you guys? Wow, Daddy has a big cat here. Florence opened her eyes and looked at the god of destruction in front of her with bright eyes, and shouted in surprise to the father standing next to him. In an instant, Bardock's expression changed. Damn it, little ancestor, haven't I seen your father and I'm playing with a wooden man here? If you anger the other party, your kid's life won't be enough to kill. Regardless of Bardock's cold sweat, the god of destruction on the side had turned black, and a trace of black lines appeared on his forehead. Oh hoo hoo, god of destruction, this kid is so cute, let's kidnap him away. Weiss looked at Florence, who looked like a porcelain doll in his arms. Hey, eldest sister, you are so beautiful, you are a little worse than your mother. Only then did Florence see Weiss hugging her. His words immediately brought a smile to Weiss' face. Children have vision, but I'm a man. Weiss said with a smile. It's a motherfucker, Weiss, I heard others say that he is beautiful, you look at the tail up. Seeing Weiss looked at Florence with a smile on his face, the god of destruction spat secretly. Boy, your father thinks that you are too bearish and accidentally smashes the building every day, so he decides to give me as a pet, and you will be mine from now on. Chapter 24. Chuan Chao. Women's Clothing Boss. The god of destruction said not only Bardock and the brat Florence, but also Wes's was stunned. Weiss threw off Florence and hurriedly ran to the god of destruction and reached out to touch the god of destruction's forehead. Ah, I'm not sick, how can a person who is good-natured be stupid? Weiss mumbled suspiciously. Crack. You are stupid, your whole family is stupid. The god of destruction slapped Phoebus's hand with a slap, and said it out of breath. After scolding, the god of destruction looked at Florence, who got up from the ground with a confused look and said. You don't have to think it's strange, you see your father nods his head, don't you think so, Mr. Bardock? As soon as the god of destruction's voice fell, Florence looked at her father with tears in her eyes, while Bardock nodded with an ugly expression. Of course, his nodding was entirely caused by the god of destruction using the power of imprisonment to force him. If he resists again, his head will be broken by the god of destruction. Wow! Florence burst into tears immediately. He didn't know how the innate intelligence was higher than that of a normal child. What Bardock meant was that he didn't want to be himself. Sir, god of destruction, you are so nasty, you seem to frighten other children. Weiss put his mouth to the ear of the god of destruction and whispered. What do you know, it's good for them both, father and son. Of course, the god of destruction has his own considerations, but he wants to see if the legendary Super Saiyan he taught will still be defeated by the so-called Royal Super Saiyan. The talent is countless times greater than others, there is no reason to be inferior to others. Bardock, since you have agreed, Florence will be taken away by us. By the way, I advise you to not go back to Saiyan Star, otherwise we won't take the blame when your wife asks. Quote. The god of destruction gave an evil laugh, picked up the tearful Florence who was crying on the ground, and disappeared into the spaceship with a teleportation. Mr. Bardock, then we will have an appointment in the future. After Weiss nodded to Bardock, he disappeared into the spaceship in an instant. Crack. Just after the few people disappeared, a sound of broken shackles reached Bardock's ears. God of destruction, I want you to die. After a roar of rage, the entire planet suddenly flashed a golden light, and then the planet suddenly turned into fireworks in the universe. A spaceship flashed through the fireworks. Brush. Destroying the god realm, 3 figures instantly appeared on the lake. Yeah, hurry up and let me go, I'm the Prince of Saiyans, let go. Florence, who was held by the god of destruction by his tail, kicked his little feet and wanted to kick the god of destruction. Unfortunately, even if his short legs were straight, he was still a leg away from the god of destruction. Boy, that's enough, I'll throw you down to feed the fish if there is any more trouble. The god of destruction slowly lowered, scaring Florence. Looking at the lake that is getting closer and closer, Florence's little feet are kicking desperately, for fear that the god of destruction will really throw him down. Boy, listen up, starting from today, you are the hired child laborer who destroys the god realm. As a reward, you can practice with Weiss, do you understand? After the god of destruction finished speaking, he threw Florence in the direction of Weiss. Florence, who was imprisoned with all her strength, screamed and fell into Weiss's arms. He'll leave it to you, and I'll be back in 30 years. The god of destruction glanced at Florence, who was hiding in Weiss's arms and didn't dare to look at the vicious cat. Sir, god of destruction, you're too much. I'll keep you so big. You want me to raise another one. But angels are priests, not babysitters, okay. Unfortunately, Weiss's words did not make the god of destruction fluctuate a little. After the god of destruction opened a space, the whole person instantly disappeared in the god of destruction realm. Nani, Lord God of Destruction, are you serious? Weiss touched his forehead in desperation. Don't be afraid, big sister, when I grow up, I will defeat the big cat and vent my anger to my sister. Florence waved her small fists and looked majestic. Sure enough, Weiss' eyes lit up when he heard those words. Shaolun is so good, Brother Lai Weiss will give you a lollipop. After touching Florence's hair, a bold idea appeared in Weiss' mind. If you train Florence well and let him defeat the god of destruction, the god of destruction will definitely be shocked. Oh well, I'm so genius. Of course, the mission assigned before the god of destruction left should not be forgotten. Weiss put his hand on little Florence's head, and a ray of light flashed. Florence's clothes were instantly changed into a maid outfit. Kawaii. Quote. Weiss played with Florence's hair happily, and a couple of ponytails appeared on Florence's head a few minutes later. What is this? Sister Weiss, you look so awkward. Florence said to Weiss with a puzzled look, and there was a bit of disgust on her little face. This is your work clothes, remember not to take it off, he won't get dirty. Weiss looked at Florence in front of him lovingly. If Bardock knew that his precious son had been turned into a women's boss by Weiss, he would definitely be furious and directly turn on Super 3, Super 4, Super 5, Super 1000, and then rubbed on the ground against Weiss's face. Even if the god of destruction finds out at that time, he is afraid that he will vomit blood. Okay, this is your work tool, remember to sweep the entire destruction god realm clean. After Weiss smiled and handed Florence a broom, he touched Florence's small head with a smile and disappeared. Only a confused Florence was left. Chapter 25. Who is this girl? In the endless alien space, a space filled with dimensional turbulence. The god of destruction was sitting cross-legged in a circular formation at this time. This formation is something that Weiss has studied for billions of years, and its only function is to greatly reduce the time when comprehending the energy of time and space. After all, time is life. And the god of destruction has also noticed something in the hundreds of years of researching space-time energy. That is, if you initially comprehend the laws of time and space, so that time can be reversed, then your lifespan can reach eternity. It seems that if I want to break free from the shackles of the priesthood, it depends on whether I can comprehend the laws of time and space. Perhaps this will also be the basis for me to surpass the Grand Priest of the Quanwang in the future. The god of destruction has divided his space-time energy into a level. If you can reverse the time and space, it is equivalent to comprehending 100% of the laws of time and space. And Weiss is comprehending 300%. And myself, after calculating, it should be at 0.001%. That's right, it's so miserable. But the god of destruction was not discouraged. I've only been cultivating for a few decades, and that old fellow, Weiss, has been cultivating for 1 trillion years. If I were me, I would be able to sit on the throne of Quanwang. But it's best to try to comprehend the energy of time and space to the realm of a great priest before the original power conference begins. Otherwise, if the 7th universe is defeated, then I will die. So far, the god of destruction is not sure whether the Grand Priest is stronger than King Quan. After all, who knows how this old bird is set up? This alien dimension is no longer suitable for me. It seems that a strong medicine is going to be prescribed. God of Destruction stood up slowly, and then punched towards the void. Boom boom boom. Tens of thousands of layered space cracks appeared in front of the God of Destruction. If Gukong in the later stage saw it, he would not be directly scared to death. You must know that breaking one space barrier and breaking two space barriers are not the same nature at all. Gukong Super Saiyan can only barely break a space barrier at the third level. The God of Destruction, on the other hand, hit tens of thousands with a single blow. According to the calculation of combat power, Gukong, who is Super 3, is hundreds of millions of times stronger and is not an opponent that God of Destruction can punch. Cut, I only broke so many. The God of Destruction spat, but Whis used the power of time and space to find a suitable space for himself from hundreds of millions of spaces. The space crack began to slowly heal after the God of Destruction did not make another move. And the God of Destruction didn't care, because the dimension in this direction didn't have the kind of alien dimension he wanted. Boom boom boom. It was another punch, and tens of thousands of spaces were shattered. However, the God of Destruction still hadn't found the alien dimension he wanted. After smashing millions of different dimension spaces in a row, the God of Destruction suddenly stopped his constantly attacking hand. Finally found it. The God of Destruction smiled slightly, and then opened the space and came to a different dimension that shone with dazzling light. It's a good flow rate. I've been here for 10 years, and the outside world will only pass one day. This kind of terrifying space is already rare in these nearby spaces. It has reached a flow rate of more than 3,000 times. The most important thing is that the God of Destruction does not have any time limit for cultivating here. After drawing Wes's magic circle on the ground, the God of Destruction sat down cross-legged and began his never-ending practice. In the blink of an eye, 100,000 years have passed. The God of Destruction, who woke up, looked at Wes standing in front of him, and suddenly the chrysanthemum tightened. Fuck, why are you here? The God of Destruction hurriedly touched his chrysanthemum and found that it was still intact. Sir, God of Destruction, why are you looking at people like this? People are afraid. Weiss patted his heart. Get out of here, hurry up, what are you doing here? The God of Destruction doesn't want to eat Weiss. This kid does things for himself every day. Master God of Destruction forgot. Didn't Ning promise to let me pick you up after 30 years? It's been 30 years now. Weiss said angrily to the God of Destruction. Oh, forgot, I've been here for 100,000 years, how can I still remember this? After explaining it to himself, the God of Destruction moved his thoughts behind his back, and instantly countless spaces were shattered. In one step, the God of Destruction stepped out of the alien dimension. Weiss hurriedly ran after him. Of course, the first thing God of Destruction did when he came out was to eat. Weiss, hurry up and serve the food, what are you doing so long? The God of Destruction, who was sitting in front of the oversized dining table, cursed when he looked at Weston who was unmoved not far away. Sir, God of Destruction, the task of preparing food this time is not mine. Weiss smiled mysteriously. Immediately under the suspicious gaze of the God of Destruction, Whis pointed his finger at the back of the God of Destruction. The God of Destruction looked over suspiciously. Suddenly, the God of Destruction was stunned. I saw a girl with long hair reaching her waist and red lips and eyebrows came over with a large plate of vegetables. The most important thing is that the other party is still wearing a maid costume. Weiss, who is she? So she's destroying the God realm. The God of Destruction looked suspiciously at the maid who kept serving dishes, and said to Whis curiously. Could it be that this kid Weiss has turned sexual? He actually knows how to pick up girls. Chapter 26, Lao Tzu's backhand is to lift the skirt. Thinking that Whis might have turned into a God of Destruction was so excited that he didn't even want to eat it. If that's the case, then you don't have to worry about being blown away. Huh. Is the God of Destruction so forgetful? Haven't you met him? You brought him to the God of Destruction realm, why did you ask me? The god of destruction choked up at Weiss, doubtful words. Feeling deep malice, he hurriedly teleported and appeared behind the maid. Suddenly, under Weiss' stunned gaze, the god of destruction lifted the maid's skirt up. Ah! A scream spread throughout the destruction god realm. The god of destruction walked to the table with a dark face and sat down. Weiss, I want an explanation. The god of destruction spoke to Weiss angrily. When the skirt was lifted by him, a fluffy tail appeared in front of the god of destruction. At this moment, the god of destruction did not know that this so-called beautiful maid was Florence. HMPH, Lord God of Destruction is really audacious. You, a man, can lift the skirt of the little girl. Look at how scary you are. Weiss hurriedly coaxed Florence, who was crying in his arms. Damn, it seems that this time the feud with Bardock is completely forged. To turn a good Saiyan prince into a big boss in women's clothing, not to mention Bardock who blesses Florence with great hope, even the god of destruction wants to beat Weiss. But the matter has come to this point, the god of destruction has nothing to do, besides, the god of destruction is still afraid of a little Bardock. By the way, Weiss, how is this kid's strength? The god of destruction asked Weiss vaguely while eating. After comforting Florence, Weiss gestured to Florence with a smile. After resisting for a while, the other party gave in. Ha! A coquettish shout made god of destruction go numb, but the thought of it being a voice from a big boss in women's clothing made god of destruction feel a chill. Boom! In Florence's coquettish voice, the entire destruction god realm actually shook. At this moment, the god of destruction frowned. It's actually reaching the realm of a god. Weiss, what the hell are you doing? The god of destruction felt this familiar energy, and frowned slightly. Drink. Endless green arrogance erupted from Florence's body. At the same time, the endless green arrogance slowly turned into black. An aura belonging to God slowly emanated from Florence's body. God of destruction, this is the legendary Super Saiyan God. I call him Super Saiyan Black, ooh. Weiss smiled proudly. In order to create a terrifying powerhouse like Florence, Weiss has been exhausted to death in the past 30 years. Super Saiyan Black. Interesting. The god of destruction smiled slightly at the corner of his mouth, and it seemed that things were going to be fun. Boom. Suddenly, the momentum that burst out from Florence suddenly increased several times, and the originally black arrogance suddenly turned green. Roar. A huge roar erupted from Florence's mouth. Have you lost your mind? Even Weiss can't solve this problem. The only downside of Chuan Chao is that he will completely lose his mind when his strength explodes. It is simply that the 6 relatives do not recognize, and the strength will continue to skyrocket. The more the strength rises, the greater the chance of runaway will be. That is to say, if no one pays attention, Chuan Chao's ultimate fate will be completely reduced to a killing machine. And what is terrifying is that Chuan Chao has the strength to survive in the universe. That is to say, apart from Kaiwang God and God of Destruction, no one can stop him. There is one thing, that is, the legendary Super Saiyan will unconsciously find the ordinary Super Saiyan, and then send him on your precious head. Boom. Just as the God of Destruction was thinking to himself, there was a knock on the door. I saw that Florence was already unconscious on the ground at this time. And there is also a huge mass above his head. Oops. There's a mistake, it's all to blame for the god of destruction. Weiss blew his fist and looked at the god of destruction angrily. Damn, what's the matter with Lao Su? You let him perform well. The god of destruction saw that Weiss was actually leaning on his head, and immediately cursed. You're so embarrassed, it's okay, what are you doing with people's skirts? Look at scaring people's little girls. The god of destruction choked on Weiss's words. Go on, it's okay to be a pseudo-mother yourself, and you have ruined other people's children. Look, is this what a Saiyan prince should look like? God of destruction spat. By the way, Bardock seems to have promised to bring this kid back to show him when he grows up. What are you going to do? Although the god of destruction is not afraid of Bardock, he is not good at dealing with his good son being brought into this deadly virtue. Ho ha ho, I've already thought about this. I'll send Xiaolun back when the time comes, and let him explain it to his parents by himself. The way Whis covered his mouth and smiled made the god of destruction secretly startled. This kid Weiss is so vicious. If he goes back, Bardock won't be righteous and kill his relatives. For the peace of the world and the stability of the universe, the god of destruction has decided. Good idea, just do as you say. After speaking, the god of destruction hurriedly pretended to be about to eat. And Whis, who was holding up the maid costume, gleamed from Florence and disappeared into the destruction god realm. A few minutes later, a light carried Whis back to the god of destruction. Chapter 27. The Legendary Super Saiyan God. By the lake in Destruction God Realm, Destruction God and Whis sneakily looked at the picture in Whis' crystal ball. Lord God of Destruction, do you think the father and son will fight? Weiss looked at Florence, who was flying towards the house, and couldn't help swallowing. I don't know, you forgot how we lied to Florence. He is now afraid of hating Bardock who didn't want him. God of Destruction certainly won't forget the good things he did. I almost forgot, isn't this what you did, God of Destruction? Why do you still want to pull me into the water? Weiss gave the God of Destruction a contemptuous look. Stop chattering, look at him in. The God of Destruction let out an angry roar and then excitedly pointed to Florence, who had walked into his castle that had not changed for decades. The two initiators just watched the show without taking it too seriously. A few minutes later, with the sound of an explosion, a golden figure flew out from the ruins of the castle holding a female Saiyan. This man is the old Bardock. Florence, I'm your father, listen to me. Bardock looked helplessly at Florence, who was standing in the ruins with a green glow all over his body. When you gave me away, did you ever think that you were my father? Florence roared softly. If Florence was normal, Bardock wouldn't be so angry. Look at Florence now, with lipstick on, skirts on, and high heels on. The appearance of a proper lady sitting on the stage, he is a dignified Saiyan king. If there is such a son who is known, he will not be laughed at. However, out of guilt, Bardock did not scold the other party, but he would never give a good face. Of course he didn't bother to explain what happened back then. Yo-Yo, Lord God of Destruction, you can see it, this is the so-called dignity of Saiyans, it makes our little family angry. Whis angrily pointed at Bardock in the shadows and cursed angrily. What do you know, Bardock is here to clear our name again. Look at how angry this kid Florence is, so he won't notice that we lied to him in the first place. Seeing such a good assist by Bardock, the God of Destruction smiled happily. Yeah, hoo, Bardock doesn't have any advantages. Weiss nodded in agreement. But Bardock didn't explain, and the two father and son didn't like each other, so there was only one ending. After abandoning his wife, Bardock and Florence fought together in an instant. Chuan Chao's strength is very terrifying, and it is dozens of times stronger than when a group of people besieged Brawley in the original Gukong Tragedy Tower. Of course, Bardock is not a vegetarian either. Decades of practice allowed him to break through the limit again and reach the third level of the legendary Super Saiyan. The golden hair is dazzling. This made the hairless god of destruction gasp for a while. Florence, fuck him, pull his hair, plug his eyes. The god of destruction's irritable words made Whis break into a cold sweat. It seems that the god of destruction has such a big complaint about the long hair. No wonder he thinks of hitting me every day. It turns out that he is jealous of my hair. Weiss stroked his sky-high hair and thought proudly. And the battle in the picture has also reached a fevered level. The older Bardock is much stronger in terms of combat experience and pure combat power than Florence, who just turned on the ordinary legendary Super Saiyan mode. Boom. After a terrifying crash, the two were separated by dozens of miles. Ha 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 ha, as expected of my son, the fighting power is really strong. Bardock laughed wildly, His son 60 or 70 years younger than him could surpass him, and the legendary Super Saiyan was indeed tyrannical. Who is your son? The old lady is a woman, and, do you think my fighting power is only that little? Florence smiled disdainfully. Bardock frowned, feeling that things were going to be difficult. Florence slowly closed her eyes, and a blazing black flame began to appear on her body. The originally violent aura unexpectedly subsided. What's going on? Bardock was stunned. Drink. After a coquettish drink, Florence's eyes suddenly turned into pure black. I am afraid the Black God mode is almost the same as the dark blue of the Tragedy Tower. The God of Destruction secretly compared. The combat power of the Black God has reached the alternate level of the ordinary God of Destruction. It is the same evaluation as the God of Destruction in the original book describing the Deep Blue Tragedy Tower. Suffer to death. After Florence became the Black God, she was obviously a lot more violent. In an instant, he appeared behind Bardock and pulled his long hair up. This scene made God of Destruction feel relieved. Let you show your long hair. Good Florence, fuck your father. And Florence in the picture did not let me be the God of Destruction. Even Bardock, who has opened the Super 3 realm, is still far inferior to Florence in the Black God mode. A journey of abuse begins. A trick comparable to the top 10 tortures of the Qing dynasty was used by Florence on his father's body. It didn't take long for Bardock to be bruised and out of Super Saiyan mode. Ha 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 ha, not bad, not bad. The old Bardock leaned on the gravel, panting, and looked at his proud son in front of him with relief. I have seen this scene for a long time, but I didn't know it at the beginning. The terrifying girl in my mind is actually you. My son, the future of the Saiyans is handed over to you. I am proud of you. After saying this, the old Bardock slowly fell to the ground. Florence, on the other hand, stayed on the spot and did not attack again. Che, what Sister Weiss said is true. Men are people who like to tell lies. How could Florence believe what Bardock said before he fell? Raising his hand is about to hit Bardock with a fatal blow. And the God of Destruction, billions of light years away, suddenly remembered something. Weiss, do you know anything about the Brut's Lightwave? With that said, a wicked smile appeared on the corner of the God of Destruction's mouth. P.S. Ha 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 ha, I am very happy today. I have 2,000 flowers, that is to say, I will add more tomorrow. In addition, there are 500 evaluation tickets, and another chapter will be added, so today I will add 2 more chapters. Do what you say, never break your promise, everyone will give a lot of flowers, plus it is more affirmative, so is the evaluation ticket. Also, as long as there are 5 people to give a reward, it will be added, and 100 VIP points are also counted. Chapter 28, Super Saiyan Tier 4. Bruise light waves. Isn't that the reflected light from the moon that Saiyans need to receive when they become gorillas? Weiss grew up taking care of Florence, and of course he knew what bruise light waves were. It's good to know. If you know it, then irradiate the current Bardock with 100 million times the bruise light wave for me. That's right, God of Destruction just wanted to see if the 4th tier of Super Saiyans in Dragon Ball GT really exists. If it existed, with Bardock's current strength, he would definitely be able to transform. Lord God of Destruction wants to see the gorilla transform. But isn't doubling it enough? Wouldn't it be a bit too much to use 100 million times? You must know that the bruise light wave is also a kind of ray. If it hits Bardock, who is now dying, it will kill people. You bastard, just shoot him, you'll die if you don't shoot him. Looking at Florence, who was about to kill his father to preach, the God of Destruction cursed. Weiss did not force any more, but a teleportation came to the sky above the Prantiel star. Immediately, a light invisible to the naked eye burst onto the ground. Florence felt a cold breath and rushed to the side. But nothing happened in front of him, but he knew that there was something terrifying near his dead ghost father. And when Weiss withdrew the bruise light wave, the icy aura disappeared. Just when Florence breathed a sigh of relief. Dong dong. Suddenly, a violent heartbeat sounded in Florence's ears. Florence's complexion changed slightly, because he saw the dramatic changes in his father's body. In just a few seconds, his body swelled several times. Fortunately, the clothes on his body are specially made, and they are still strong and not broken even under the skyrocketing figure. Dong 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 dong. The beating of the heart is getting louder and louder. Giant ape, humph, does it work? Florence snorted, quietly watching Bardock's rapid changes. Roar. After a loud roar, a huge golden ape appeared in the eyes of Florence and the god of destruction. Yellow shit. That's right, ha ha ha, Super 4 really exists. It seems that there are a lot more things that can be played in the future. The god of destruction smiled with satisfaction. After all, before Dragon Ball Beyond came, Dragon Ball GT has always been the original work in the heart of the god of destruction. Yeah, god of destruction, do you feel it? Bardock seems to have changed a lot. Weiss was as happy as seeing something new. The whole person excitedly pulled the god of destruction and pointed at the golden giant ape in the picture. Don't bother, I can see it. By the way, you haven't seen a Saiyan in this form. God of Destruction slapped Whis' hand and asked in confusion. No, since ancient times, Saiyans have only two forms of short golden hair and long golden hair. This is the second time I have seen long hair, but the first time I have seen a golden gorilla. The God of Destruction nodded slightly at Whis' words. The golden apes in GT are the products of accident. It is not a simple thing to become a Super 4. After all, if you want to become a gorilla, you need two elements. First, the strength of the Saiyans must reach Super 3. And the second condition is that the Super Saiyan has no resistance, otherwise the Super Saiyan's strength can resist turning into a gorilla. After all, the savage form of gorillas really doesn't fit their image for the super strong. Of course, there is an exception to that, is the use of ultra-high-speed bruise light waves to directly force people to transform into Super 4. Of course, the strength of the irradiated cannot be too weak, at least it must be beyond the second peak. Haha, it's the first time you see it, then you'll be blessed, and this change will continue. The God of Destruction smiled and said mysteriously. Oh, will it change? Can it still be transformed into a god mode? Weiss was surprised, and hurriedly stared at the golden ape in the picture carefully. Roar. A roar erupted from Bardock's mouth. At the same time, the strength of the whole body is still growing. Of course, the black god Florence, opposite him, did not fluctuate at all. After all, the god mode has surpassed the Super 3 mode by tens of thousands of times, and even the current great ape is not much scary. And just when Florence wanted to end this farce, the wild gorilla suddenly stopped. Have you regained consciousness? Hey, it's time to play. The God of Destruction smiled and looked at the gorilla in the picture. At the same time, the figure flashed. In an instant, it came to the sky above the plant star. You still have to watch the live version when you watch a play. In the starry sky, the God of Destruction looked at the father and daughter, son, who were killing each other with their hands behind their backs. On the ground, Florence slowly frowned. From the moment Bardock regained consciousness in front of him, he felt that something was wrong. Florence, your strength is really good, but how long can you maintain your current form? The golden ape opened his mouth and smiled, and at the same time, endless white smoke came out of his body. After a moment, his body contracted violently. But what surprised Florence was that Bardock's strength, which had been increased tenfold, actually began to grow infinitely again. In just 10 seconds, Bardock's strength increased hundreds of times. In addition, the golden gorilla is 10 times stronger than the normal form, so Chaosis' strength is already thousands of times that of the normal form. Saiyan, there is still such a change. Florence, Mei wrinkled slightly. Very good power. The appearance of Bardock at this time is exactly the same as the appearance of Sun Wukong Super 4 in the original book. Fiery red hair, scarlet eyeshadow, thick tail and body. The shawl's long hair makes him feel like a beast. HMPH, what if you're strong? Do you think you were strong first? Florence smiled disdainfully. The district is over 4, so what? Florence clenched her right fist, and Void punched it. Boom. The domineering Bardock, who was standing in the same place, suddenly seemed to be hit by a truck, and flew out for hundreds of miles, and finally slammed into the mountain, and the mountain was like paper paste. Chapter 29. Both die. Hoo-hoo, although this new form is powerful, it doesn't seem to have any effect on God mode. Weiss smiled and flew to the God of Destruction, and said to the God of Destruction with a smile. However, Whis looked a little puzzled by the God of Destruction. Could it be that the God of Destruction has been practicing prophecy for 100,000 years in the alien dimension? Why does he even know this kind of thing? The God of Destruction has become more and more mysterious recently, and even Whis wondered if the God of Destruction had secretly trained him behind his back. Indeed, the bonus of God mode is indeed much stronger than that of this form. However, this form seems to be only the initial stage of this form, and there may be improvements. The God of Destruction was a little excited when he thought about the Super 5, Super 6, etc. in the previous life's fan works. However, if you want to study these things, there is another premise, that is, your own strength must meet the standard. If you don't meet the standard, if you are surpassed by the Saiyans, it will be a shame. Anyway, Lao Tzu is also a God of Destruction. How can he be surpassed by these scumbags? The God of Destruction has decided that this time, after returning home, he will challenge the cultivation of higher difficulty. And Florence on the ground once again started a journey of abusing her father. But what puzzled Florence this time was that Bardock's attack was not that violent. On the contrary, Bardock's attack is still very soft. What do you mean? He thought I'd show mercy to him. Florence instantly felt insulted. Suddenly the attack intensified again. And Bardock is unspeakable of suffering. Grass, why is this kid so energetic? It stands to reason that he is about to go crazy. Judging from the situation of Florence when she was a child, such a violent attack has already made Florence go wild. Is it because I'm not angry enough? Bardock felt the force of Florence's fist hitting his face suddenly heavier, and decided to take a gamble in his heart. Ha 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 ha. Suddenly, Bardock laughed without warning. Let Florence frown. What are you laughing at? Florence asked suspiciously. Ha ha ha, I laugh at you sad. I threw you away, and you got it back again. I just don't know why I, Bardock, the king of Saiyans, have such a cheap one as you. Son. Bardock spit out a mouthful of saliva from his swollen mouth that looked like a pig's head, right on Florence's face. Immediately, Florence's face darkened. How dare you? Florence raised her fist angrily and hit Bardock hard in the face. The breath, which was not felt at all, suddenly flew away. How dare you? There was another questioning, and then Florence stepped on Bardock lying on the ground with a big foot. The eyes slowly turned pure white, and Florence, whose arrogance slowly turned green, slowly raised his right hand. A green ball of light condensed in Florence's big palm. However, Bardock was not at all afraid, but was slightly excited. That's it, go berserk. You can't control your body after you go berserk. That's what Bardock wanted. At this time, he secretly admired his eloquence, and actually drove his son crazy with a few words. Although I was beaten for more than 10 minutes, one word is worth it. However, Florence's next sentence made Bardock almost vomit blood. How dare you spoil my makeup? After listening to Florence's roar, the whole person completely went berserk. However, the strength of the body is rapidly declining. He who only passed the super mode was not Bardock's opponent at all. Go to hell, 10 times the cannon. Bardock lay on the ground and shot a scarlet beam of light with his hands. Florence, who had already entered the rampage, had no room to react. The whole person flew upside down and rushed towards a star in the sky that was very close to the plant star. Suddenly, the entire star, which is far larger than the sun, exploded and turned into pieces. Florence, on the other hand, turned into fly ash at the moment when the star exploded. On the ground, Bardock glanced at the star that turned into fly ash, and his heart suddenly hurt, but he didn't show it. Suddenly, a large mouthful of blood spurted out of his mouth, instantly staining the ground red. At the age of 80 or 90, he has entered the old age of a Saiyan, and this time he was forcibly promoted to the Super 4 realm by the God of Destruction. His body has completely collapsed. Before he died, he recalled the picture he predicted a day earlier in his mind. In the picture, Florence was blasted into the sun and turned to ashes. And the second picture is actually the picture of Florence and Kakarot together. Ha ha ha, I was curious about who this girl is. It turned out to be the kid Florence, but that's all Dad can do for you. After a tragic smile, Bardock slowly closed his eyes. The hair that originally appeared on the surface of the body slowly retracted into the body. In the starry sky. Lord God of Destruction, my little sister is dead, what should I do? Weiss pretended to be sad and cried to the God of Destruction. But the God of Destruction just gave the other party a blank look. You angels still have such feelings. Don't make fun of me, okay? Equivalent to the infinite lifespan of Weiss, Florence is like an ant he accidentally picked up. Now that the ant has been played to death, it is impossible for people to be sad. I hate it. She is a little sister who was raised with great difficulty. How could she let him die? With one move, a ghost of the soul was forcibly pulled out of the underworld by him. Asking the King of Hell would not dare to say a word even if he knew about it. He would simply not be able to offend anyone with such means. Unfortunately, it takes at least 1,000 years of the main universe to recreate the physique of God. It seems that I have to be busy again. After a helpless sigh, Weiss took back his little sister's soul into the scepter. Chapter 30, The God of Destruction Convention. Che, do you still have this kind of consciousness? Well, it's almost time to start working. The God of Destruction despised Weiss's words. The God of Destruction frowned slightly after seeing Bardock's death. Who was this Bardock who was so bored and brought him over? Unfortunately, the God of Destruction can't use the time-space ring to travel through time and space. Otherwise, you can go directly to 1,000 years later to see if you can see anything. After the God of Destruction sighed, he and Weiss turned into a streamer. Disappeared into the sky. The work of the God of Destruction is to destroy some old planets, or some planets inhabited by vicious people. In this way, the peace of the universe can be guaranteed, and secondly, after destroying the planet, Kaiwang Shen can reassemble its fragments into a new planet full of vitality. Doing so would make the universe more complete, which is why King Quan would scare the God of Destruction into disappearing when he knew that the God of Destruction was lazy. Sir, God of Destruction, you have accumulated for thousands of years. This time, you will have to work continuously for more than 10 years to complete these tasks. After talking about the scepter of Weiss, a list of several hundred meters long appeared in Weiss's hand. It's so tragic that I'm a God of Destruction, and I still have to work hard for my work. The God of Destruction became more and more certain that he must beat King Quan like a pupil. Let's go, this time we will directly destroy, not looking for anything delicious. In order to finish all his work as soon as possible, the God of Destruction resolutely gave up his favorite food. Nani, Lord God of Destruction, you can't do this, just do it for a few more years, but people still want to buy some cosmetics. When Weiss heard the God of Destruction's words, his face changed dramatically, and the pink on his face fell down layer by layer with excitement. Fuck you, I have practiced for so many years, do you still go shopping less? You still have the face to say that you want to buy cosmetics. Don't even think about it. After being scolded by the God of Destruction, Weiss turned his head away in anger. Let's go, time is running out. God of Destruction urged Travis angrily. Humph. It's a pity that Weiss just glanced at the God of Destruction and ignored him. I've served you, it's fine, just by a little bit, that's it. The god of destruction had no choice but to compromise. It wasn't that he couldn't go by himself without Weiss. The main reason was that Weiss was someone who raised himself and grew up without credit and hard work. Sure enough, as soon as the god of destruction's words came out, Weston burst into laughter. The god of destruction is the best, I promise, just by a little bit. Weiss smiled and checked his hands. I hope you remember this sentence. No way, even though I felt that I would be deceived by Weiss, the god of destruction still recognized it. Time passed very fast. It has been thousands of years since the god of destruction came to this world. During these thousands of years, only the god of destruction has been awake for less than 100 years, and the rest of the time is either sleeping or cultivating. Fortunately, the current god of destruction has fully comprehended the second stage of Zizai Jigong. And the recovery speed is greatly improved. Therefore, even if the god of destruction is fully used for cultivation, the destructive energy of the god of destruction will not be exhausted. Weiss, you big liar, you agreed to buy only a little bit. Look at you, the entire destruction god realm is your cosmetic, can you use it all alone? 100 years have passed since the start of work. The work that could have ended in decades was literally taken several times of time by Weiss shopping. At this time, the world of destruction god was half occupied by cosmetics. The god of destruction is too embarrassed to talk to me. Look, the other half of the god of destruction is still full of your delicious food. If I hadn't blessed the god of destruction with a fresh keeping device, your food would have gone sour long ago. Quote. Weiss made a face at the god of destruction. The god of destruction blushed after hearing this. Although it was true, the god of destruction still felt that Weiss did not give him face. Okay, I'm going to practice, pack all my food, I'm going to pack it up and take it with me. God of destruction hurriedly changed the subject, and he didn't have time to wrestle with Weiss. It's only been more than 800 years since the original book started. Yes, I know the god of destruction. Weiss said angrily to the god of destruction, and then waved the scepter, and instantly the food that was covered in the world of the king of gods turned into a ring. Here, god of destruction, this is what you eat. After that, Weiss threw the ring to the god of destruction. Storage ring, a storage ring that can fit a galaxy is indeed an existence that can destroy the universe. The god of destruction gave a slight sigh, and the ring was stuck in his hand. Drip drip. At this moment, Weiss' scepter suddenly lit up, and Weiss' face suddenly became serious. Suddenly a ray of light shot out from the scepter. The light suddenly turned into a small blue figure. This man, like Weiss, has blue skin and white hair. I have seen the great priest. Weiss smiled and saluted the grand priest. The god of destruction frowned. It was actually a great priest. Lord Grand Priest, long time no see. The god of destruction also said hello. Haha, the god of destruction has grown so big, it's been a long time since I saw him. The great priest's smile was very contagious, and even the god of destruction couldn't help but have a strong affection for him in his heart. But it is precisely because of this that the god of destruction is more and more vigilant. Why does the great priest have time to chat with me? Do you have something to explain? The god of destruction didn't talk nonsense, and asked the great priest directly. After all, if you have something to do with Weiss, you won't wait until you and Weiss are together before contacting Weiss. Well, there is indeed something. Lord Quanwang feels as if the god of destruction conference has not been held for a long time, and decided to hold the God of Destruction conference tomorrow in the Temple of the King of Destruction. Please be sure to participate. The great priest explained his purpose, while the God of Destruction changed his face drastically. The King of Quan wants to hold a God of Destruction conference. Damn, this little thing is moody. If he is accidentally wiped out, who can he reason with? But God of Destruction couldn't help but go. If you don't go, you'll just die. Well, see you then. Chapter 31. The King of Primary School Students. Weiss, What the hell do you think King Quan is doing this time? Bruce said to Wes with a solemn expression. Lord Quanlong, maybe you're bored. You want to play games with you, Lord God of Destruction. Wes remembered how the previous God of Destruction died, and looked at the God of Destruction with a sad face. Grass, don't look at me like this, okay? Wes's eyes instantly made the God of Destruction angry. The strongest God of Destruction in his history, how can he still be defeated by a child like King Quan? Looks like it's going to be some killer trick. The God of Destruction touched his chin and smiled slightly at the corner of his mouth. On the second cosmic day, the God of Destruction put on his clothes early in the morning, rode a cube with Whis, and flew towards the king's realm. Along the way, God of Destruction used the void creation to create a lot of discs, as well as some toys. Sir, God of Destruction, are you going to give these childish children's toys to King Quan? Weiss looked at the toys in disbelief. What do you know? King Quan is not a child. Look, as long as he wants us to play with him, as long as I sacrifice these things, hee hee. Speaking of which, the God of Destruction gave an evil laugh. However, Whis does not believe that King Jaeon, who has existed since his birth, will be captured by these little things. But he didn't say anything, and he couldn't get involved in what the God of Destruction decided. God of Destruction, here we are. At this time, Whis also found that he had come to the whole king realm. Boom. After a short roar, the two landed not far from the Quanwang Palace. Yo-yo, who is this? Isn't this the God of Destruction? So you didn't come with your fat brother this time. Just when the God of Destruction just landed, a voice that was countless times more annoying than Champa came over. Damn, get out. The God of Destruction didn't even turn his head, he casually hit a purple ball of light towards the source of the sound, and his whole turned white the moment he attacked. Not far from the God of Destruction, there is a God of Destruction in the shape of a mouse, and his priest is standing there. Ha ha ha, God of Destruction, you are dead, aren't you afraid of being punished by King Quan? Seeing that the God of Destruction actually attacked him, the magical rat of Destruction laughed and stretched out his hand to block the attack of the God of Destruction. The priest beside him smiled slightly, as if he had noticed something and nodded to Wes. Boom. After an explosion, Katai Mouse was instantly enveloped in purple light. A huge mushroom cloud rose from the ground. After the smoke dissipated, there was no damage in the entire king realm, while the Kitai Mouse was lying on the ground with serious injuries. HMPH, how dare you come and yell at me at this level? The God of Destruction smiled disdainfully. At this time, he was already in the same rank as the God of Destruction. Even if the priest does not use the time power, only the great priest can defeat him. Damn, God of Destruction, I want you to die. Boom. The Kitai Mouse roared and burst into a terrifying aura, and the purple light shone on the entire king realm. Lord Kitai Mouse, this is where the use of force is prohibited in the entire king realm. At this moment, an infectious voice came from a distance. I saw the great priest slowly descend from the sky. The God of Destruction saw this scene, and the whole shrank violently. I don't know when it came, but the strength of the great priest is really terrifying. The God of Destruction was secretly vigilant. However, the God of Destruction did not show any expression. I have seen the great priest. Both Weiss and the priests of the fourth universe greeted the great priest respectfully. Kitai Mouse dissipated the destructive energy around his body unwillingly. I have seen the great priest. Kitai Mouse greeted the great priest. Master Quanwang doesn't like to make noise. This is the first and last time. The great priest smiled and said something to Kitai Mouse, which immediately made his complexion purple. Did Lao Su do it first? It's obviously the God of Destruction, okay. You can't be reasonable. Kitai Mouse scolded furiously in his heart, but on the surface he could only nod his head in suffocation. Okay, the other gods of destruction have arrived, let's go in together. After the great priest smiled, he ignored him, turned his body and flew towards the palace of the whole king. And at the moment of turning around, his eyes glanced at the god of destruction. The god of destruction frowned slightly, but without saying much, he strode towards the Quanwang Palace. Damn, how can the god of destruction become so powerful? Can Konnik see his strength? Kitai Mouse asked unwillingly to his priest, the big man Konnik. Do you really want to know? I don't want to hit you. You're afraid you won't be able to catch his punch now. Konnik said that he didn't want to strike, but his mouth was very sarcastic. What? So powerful? Is the god of destruction serious about cultivating? Kitai Mouse, with an ugly face, the god of destruction, who was similar to himself, was far ahead of him, which he couldn't accept. No, it seems there is only one way. Kitai Mouse sneered, the god of destruction just gave him such a slap in the face of two people's Liangzi is settled. Thinking about dealing with the god of destruction like this, he hurriedly walked towards the Hall of the Kings. God of Destruction and Weiss walked through a hall and came to a large round table. At the top of the big round table sits a little kid with a football head. The two characters Quanwang on his body identify his identity. The little brat stared at the god of destruction who walked in, and the empty eyes made the god of destruction wonder if the kid was asleep. Hey, god of destruction, you've become amazing. You seem to be more powerful than everyone else. At this moment, King Quan's surprised words made all the gods of destruction sitting at the head of the big round table stunned. What? God of destruction is better than all of us. How is that possible? Isn't he and Champa the youngest? How can they be better than us? Lord Quanwang's words will not be false. It seems that the god of destruction has really become stronger. Each god of destruction looked at the god of destruction with a solemn expression. Ha ha, the whole king has won the prize, it's nothing. Chapter 32, Peppa Pig. The rambling words of the god of destruction shocked everyone. Even Whis, who has always been light-hearted, hurriedly abducted the god of destruction. However, the god of destruction did not respond in the slightest. Hey, god of destruction, what's in the ring in your hand? Just when everyone thought that King Quan was going to lose his temper, King Quan asked the god of destruction with shining eyes as if he had discovered a new continent. Huh, what's going on? The god of destruction is holding something to make King Quan show such an expression. It must be some unusual treasure or something. Maybe it's a pet, maybe. Numerous gods of destruction began to whisper. Hey, Vados, what the hell are you talking about the god of destruction? Champa asked Vados who was standing behind him suspiciously. I don't know either, the god of destruction seems to be very mysterious recently, even this guy Weiss said that he can't see through the god of destruction. Vados' words made Champa's eyes widen. And at this moment, the god of destruction spoke up. I don't know what Lord Quanwang said. I have a lot of things here. The god of destruction with a slight smile on his lips shook his ring. And the golden light in King Quan's eyes became stronger and stronger. It's that pink thing, what is that? King Quan happily flew to the god of destruction and circled around the god of destruction. Two ballpoint pen-like guards rushed over to guard the safety of King Jaeon. Oh, you said this, Nuo. The god of destruction gave a wicked smile. Then he took out a stuffed toy from the ring. And the plush toy looks impressive even if Peppa Pig says, Peppa Pig. Wow, kawaii. King Quan hugged Peppa Pig with glowing eyes and smiled happily. At this moment, not only all the god of destruction angels. The two guards and the great priest on the side were all stunned. This. It's incredible that such a small thing can make Lord Quanwang so happy. Where the hell did God of Destruction find this pink thing? Is there some magic that can't be done? The gods of destruction were so annoyed that it was just cheating to make Lord Quanwang laugh so easily. Ha ha ha, I haven't seen Lord Quanwang so happy for a long time. God of Destruction, you did a great job. The great priest also smiled and nodded at the god of destruction. The great priest has won the prize, it's just some gadgets. God of Destruction shook his head. By the way, Lord Quanwang, There are also matching CDs here, you can take a look. With that said, the God of Destruction took out a CD, and then took out a monitor at the same time. In fact, God of Destruction can directly adjust the screen to play in the void, but in order to attract the curiosity of children, he chose to use the player. Huh, what is this? Why is there a picture of this doll printed? King Quan pointed to the CD with a cute face and asked the God of Destruction. Haha, this doll is called Peppa Pig. This is the story of Peppa Pig. I'll show it to you. With that said, the God of Destruction inserted the disc, and the Peppa Pig cartoon started to play on the screen. Hello everyone, I'm Paige. Peppa Pig with slanted eyes in the picture just came out. The king's eyes were attracted. And one episode of animation is over. Everyone, including the high priest, looked very dark. Lord Quan Wong actually enjoys watching this kind of fucking thing. Yeah, what's the mud, what's the devilish pig's cry, how did the God of Destruction come up with these things? Be quiet, you've watched Lord Quan Wong for the second time. Over and over again, the same episode of Peppa Pig. Quan Wong watched the same episode more than 10 times in a row before turning his eyes away. It's so fun, it's as fun as destroying a few universes. God of Destruction, is this still there? King Quan looked at the God of Destruction eagerly, his small eyes full of desire. Yes, there are, but it will take 1,000 years for the second episode to come out, but I have a tattoo sticker, do you want it? Speaking of which, the God of Destruction took out a piece of paper with Peppa Pig printed on it from the ring. Hearing that it would take 1,000 years to wait, King Quan, who looked a little lost, was instantly happy when he saw this sticker. Huh, what's this for? There's a picture of Peppa Pig. King Jaeon's impatient appearance made everyone around him completely convinced of the God of Destruction. There is only one God of Destruction who can make Lord Quan Wong like this. The great priest sighed slightly. Yeah, father, maybe even you don't have this ability. Weiss said to the high priest with a smile. Haha, Weiss, it's not that you don't know your father's deadly temper. You can suffocate him if you can tell a joke. Vados came over, covered his mouth and laughed at the great priest. You, how old are you and still the same? The great priest glanced at Vados helplessly. The only thing he could talk to him like this was the universe that had not been destroyed, so Vados dared to speak to himself like this. Father, you are too used to the two of them. Look at Weiss, even women are afraid of the makeup. The serious-looking big-backed Karen walked over with a dignified expression and taught his brother Weiss. In response, Weiss just grimaced. And just when the great priest family was exchanging feelings, an action of the God of Destruction caused the two guards to explode. God of Destruction, can you also pull the sleeves of Lord Quan Wong's hand? I saw that the God of Destruction at this time was holding King Quan's little hand and rolling up his sleeves. After hearing the words of the two guards, the God of Destruction flashed a cold light. Stop, did you tell me? Go back and stand, the God of Destruction won't hurt me. The original smiling face of King Quan was gone, and the calm little face exuded infinite majesty. Yes. The expressions of the two guards suddenly changed drastically. He hurriedly ran to King Jaeon's chair and stood like an iron pillar. Two cowards. The God of Destruction smiled disdainfully, then tore off the tattoo sticker and pressed it against the arm of Quan Wong. P.S. Ha, I did the 5 chapters yesterday. All readers, please hurry up and reward the flowers for evaluation. If the flowers reach 10,000, if the evaluation reaches 2,000, I will add 2 more chapters. There are also 3 more rewards to add. Salted fish does what it says. Chapter 33. Social People. King of All. Everyone held their breath after the tattoo sticker had just been attached to King Quan's small arm. Stab. When God of Destruction ripped off the tattoo stickers again. There is a brand new Peppa Pig tattoo on the arm of Quan Wong. Wow, kawaii. King Quan smiled happily while holding his arms. King Quan, there is a saying in Peppa Pig's hometown, Peppa Pig gets tattooed, and applause is given to people in society. Posting this Peppa Pig, you are a person in society, King Quan. Quote. The god of destruction, with his hands behind his back, said mysteriously. Social people. Everyone was stunned. What species is this? Yes, it is a social person. A social person is a person standing at the top of the world, like a person like King Quan. So I think about it, only King Quan can be called a social person. The words of the god of destruction shocked everyone. I didn't expect that there is such a statement, it is a long experience. Yeah, a social person, it feels so domineering. On the other hand, King Xiaochuan raised his hands excitedly and shouted, from today onwards, I am a social person, haha, I am really happy. The god of destruction stood by and forced himself not to laugh. By the way, there is another characteristic of social people's words, that is, when he shows his tattoo, everyone who sees it should applaud. After the god of destruction finished speaking, he hurriedly puffed up his hands. When the others heard it, they immediately began to applaud violently like the god of destruction. Clap 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 clap. Clap 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 clap. The applause spread throughout the entire Quanwang temple, and Quanwang felt an unprecedented joy at this moment. He, who was extremely deficient in the spiritual world, was immediately moved by these little things of the god of destruction. Ha ha ha, very good, I am very happy. By the way, god of destruction, thanks to you, you can tell me directly after you want anything, and Peppa Pig's second episode will come out as soon as possible, but I can't wait, underscore. King Jaeon's words made all the gods of destruction look at the god of destruction with jealousy. The Kitai mouse was ugly. If the god of destruction lets King Quan destroy him at this time, he believes that the King Quan who is on the rise at this time will definitely not be merciful. Thank you for the reward of King Quan. I really have a request, I don't know if you can agree. The god of destruction smiled slightly at King Quan. Sure enough, the god of destruction came prepared this time. I don't know what he wants. But if you say that, someone will suffer, but I heard someone scolding the god of destruction just now. After talking about all the gods of destruction, the angel's eyes turned to Kitai Mouse. Ha ha ha, if the god of destruction wants you to disappear, I will raise both hands. Shampa's happy appearance caused everyone to shake their heads slightly. Indeed, in the early years, Kitai Mouse used to bully Shampa and the god of destruction because of his age. It seems that this time the Kitai Mouse is going to get cold. I want to practice for a period of time in the different dimensions around the king's realm, but I can't open these spaces with my strength, so I hope you can find someone to help me. The god of destruction has cultivated for 100,000 years in the alien dimension around the god of destruction, and finally found that his strength has grown very slowly. Because simply speeding up time doesn't do much good, because the strength of the different dimension is so great that it can't be used with one's own strength. But when he came to the king's realm, he found that the different dimension of the king's realm was so powerful that his full blow didn't even cause the space to fluctuate. Ah, god of destruction, do you like to practice? Well, no problem, great priest, I'll leave the request of the god of destruction to you. King Quan was happy at this time, and the request of the god of destruction was not too much. Yes, Lord Quanwang. The great priest smiled and nodded. Hey, by the way, I forgot about the business, it's a meeting, it's a meeting. Only then did King Quan remember that he had called them to a meeting this time. The god of destruction walked over to Shampa and sat down, looking at the envious eyes of the god of destruction around him. The god of destruction sneered. A child can't be coaxed well, so many years in vain. At this moment, King Xiaochuan suddenly raised his arm, revealing the dazzling Peppa Pig. The god of destruction's expression changed drastically, and he quickly applauded frantically. Wow, god of destruction, you didn't lie to me, you really applauded. King Quan saw everyone applauding crazily, and laughed even more happily. Nonsense, I said that, if anyone dares not to applaud, it's not their own death. And just when the god of destruction was thinking wildly, the great priest spoke. I called everyone here this time because there is something to announce. After a pause, the great priest continued. Master Quanwang feels that many gods of destruction are a little slack in their work, so he decided that this time Quanwang will count the number of planets in each universe that have reached the goal of destruction but have not been destroyed, and then finally compare the universe with the largest number. Lord Quanwang will take action to destroy him. As soon as the words of the great priest came out, the expressions of the god of destruction and the priest changed greatly. Only god of destruction looked at Whis with a meaningful look after hearing it. As the son of the great priest, Whis suddenly forced himself to destroy all the planets in the near future. It seems that he got wind. Sure enough, it's cool to have a backstage relationship anywhere. The god of destruction sighed with emotion. Wow Kaka, my thousands of years of losing weight have finally paid off. Vados, I will definitely not be destroyed this time, ha ha ha. Shanpa on the side laughed proudly. Since being beaten by the god of destruction, Shanpa has been forced by Vados to lose weight. Although it was not useful in the slightest, the work was done anyway. And just when Shanpa smiled happily, the expressions of the other gods of destruction on the side were ugly. Okay, Lord Quanwang is going to start counting. Chapter 34, The Ninth Universe. Destroy. Okay, start counting now. The great priest is not in the mood to care about the lives of others, even if it is a priest, as long as it is not his own child, he doesn't care. As soon as the great priest finished speaking, a picture appeared in the center of the big round table. In the picture are 12 huge light balls. The sphere of light is enclosed in a circle. I will show the remaining uncorrupted planets in each universe on their respective universes, and then you will have a number in your own mind. The words of the great priest made everyone sweat slightly. After all, no one knows if the other gods of destruction are working hard. In the anxious eyes of everyone, numbers were displayed on each cosmic light sphere. The god of destruction was slightly relieved when he saw that the seventh universe in front of him showed 58. I can't believe that so many planets have grown in just one day. Isn't the profession of god of destruction so easy to do? However, the god of destruction can say with certainty that if he admits to being second, I am afraid that no god of destruction would dare to admit that he is number one. Ha ha ha, I only have 1,000 planets, just ask who of you to compare with me. At this moment, the elephant on the side laughed loudly, pointing to the 1086 written on the sixth universe of his own and said with a laugh. The god of destruction in the first universe, the 12th universe, and the 11th universe looked at him with contempt, and then sneered at the hundreds of planets displayed above his own universe. Elephant Pa, who was just trying to pretend, was slapped in the face, but he wasn't afraid, because he deliberately glanced at Chitara's fourth universe. The large string of numbers shown above is probably in the tens of millions. At this time, Chitara was already in a cold sweat. Alas, it seems that this time, I'm going to say goodbye to everyone. At this moment, the god of destruction of Universe 9 sighed. Everyone turned their heads and watched the billions of numbers displayed on the ninth universe go silent. Billions of planets are almost negligible for a universe. But if all these are planets that have reached the level of destruction but have not been destroyed, it will be a bit too much. Sidera, you. The deliciousness on the side. He knew best why Sidera didn't destroy these planets. One of them can't tolerate any evil, and the other can't bear to hurt any kindness. If the thinking is the same, it stands to reason that the working ability of the two people should be similar. But the way the two did it was very different. In the universe where Waymeda is located, as long as there is an evil person on a planet that needs to be destroyed, it will be destroyed by him immediately. Even some planets that don't need to be destroyed, as long as the number of evil people is too large, he will also destroy them. Because of this, he often clashes with the king of the 11th universe. And the 9th universe is 6, and all these planets that still exist are because there are kind people on them. It is because there are some kind people that he will let this planet go. Over time, these planets have accumulated hundreds of thousands of years, and they have become so much. HMPH, I told you a long time ago that your indecision will eventually harm the ninth universe. The priest of the ninth universe is a proud person. Seeing that he is now being dragged to death by this indecisive god of destruction, his face is also ugly. Alas, I thought that as long as I was punished, I didn't expect that it would drag down the entire ninth universe. Bearded Sidera sighed, and her lonely expression silenced all the gods of destruction. If the other gods of destruction were to be eliminated, it would be too late for them to be happy, but Sidera, many gods of destruction still respect them. Of course, some people think he is pedantic, and Chitara is one of them. As two opposite universes, Chitara has always regarded Sidera as the biggest obstacle to her growth. HMPH, when Sidera dies, my fourth universe will grow rapidly. I just don't know how this kind of waste can sit on the seat of the god of destruction. Chitara didn't show it. After all, she seemed to be second to last. If King Quan got angry and brought him along, there would be nothing to deal with at that time. Yeah, have you been selected? That's Sidera's ninth universe. King Quan also recovered from the daze at this time. Looking at his innocent appearance, the god of destruction was slightly speechless. Maybe this kid doesn't even know what the destruction of the ninth universe means to others, maybe it's just fun for him. Yes, Lord Quanwang, this time it is indeed Sidera who has been slack in work. The Grand Priest responded with a smile. Then the ninth universe disappears. King Quan stood up with his little hands behind his back. The 12 gods of destruction also stood up with solemn faces. King Quan raised his right hand, his fingertips flashing with dazzling white light. The white light instantly spread from the Quanwang Temple to the Quanwang realm, and then to the 12 universes. At the same time, the light ball representing the ninth universe on the big round table slowly became transparent. After a long time, it completely disappeared in front of everyone's eyes. Everyone, farewell. Sidera smiled and said something to the crowd, then slowly disappeared in front of the crowd. Lord Grand Priest, I'm going back. The priest of the ninth universe glanced coldly at the place where Sidera disappeared, and then said to the great priest. Well, you go. The great priest smiled slightly, and then the priest of the ninth universe disappeared. But the god of destruction frowned. Weiss, the priest of the ninth universe doesn't seem to be dead. Where did he go? The god of destruction asked suspiciously. The god of destruction does not know that if the universe under our priest's jurisdiction disappears, we will return to the place where the priest came from, until a new universe is born, or the universe is resurrected. Weiss explained to the god of destruction with a smile. No wonder the priests of other universes that were destroyed in earlier years have never appeared. The god of destruction nodded slightly. Okay, that's it for today's meeting, everyone go back. By the way, remember to work hard. Chapter 35, Black Cat Sheriff. Although the meeting was brief, it weighed heavily on everyone's hearts. Watching Hula run aside and start watching the first episode of Peppa Pig, King Jaeon, the god of destruction spat. Paralyzed, the fate of Lao Su should be decided by such a mentally retarded little brat, it's just fucked up. When Sidera disappeared, the god of destruction became more and more obsessed with becoming stronger. God of destruction, I'll go first, come and play when I have time, but remember to bring something delicious. Shangpa said hello to the god of destruction and hurriedly walked out of this place of right and wrong. Ho ho ho, it's a strange story that Master Shangpa even greets the god of destruction. Weiss said with a smile. HMPH, I'm not afraid of being beaten, this kid seems to finally recognize the reality. God of destruction smiled dismissively. God of destruction, come and play when you have time. The god of destruction, like Cleopatra, suddenly came to the god of destruction and blew a kiss at the god of destruction. Makes god of destruction uncomfortable. Not only her, but many gods of destruction came to the god of destruction to say hello before leaving. It seems that in their eyes, the god of destruction who made King Quan happy is already a big celebrity. Well, it will. The god of destruction is perfunctory, and the god of destruction has few people he wants to associate with, all of them are savages. But there is one exception, and that is Chitara. Before Chitara left, she gave the god of destruction a sinister look. Originally, his plan to destroy the gods had died before he started to implement it. Do you still want to jump? Cats and mice have been around since ancient times. You, a little mouse, think you can do whatever you want just because you are old. Hey, I'll kill you in the next second. The god of destruction glanced at Chitara's back lightly, sneered, and walked over to the elementary school student King Quan who was still watching cartoons. Hey, god of destruction, haven't you left yet? Would you like to watch Peppa Pig with me? Humph. After Quan Wong finished speaking, he did not forget to learn the pig's feet twice. Immediately, the faces of the two guards turned dark, and their own King Quan was actually damaged. If the people behind King Quan found out, they wouldn't kill themselves directly. But now the god of destruction is the king of all kings. If the two of them dare to say anything at will, they must be the two brothers who will die. Looks like it's going to beat the god of destruction. The two looked at each other and both had this idea. I won't watch it. By the way, this is another cartoon. There were a lot of people just now. Now I'll give it to you together. The god of destruction laughed evilly, took out a CD, and handed it to King Quan Wong. Wow, god of destruction, you're so nice, what's this name? King Quan excitedly held the CD in his hand and asked the god of destruction excitedly. Ah, it's called Sheriff Black Cat. This is a limited edition cartoon. In the eyes of the great priest and Weiss, who had a strange expression on the side of the god of destruction, they immediately knew that some people might be unlucky. Black Cat Sheriff, hurry up and let me see it. Quan Wang's small eyes were rolling. Soon, the animation will start broadcasting. Lord Grand Priest, please help me open the alien dimension recently. The god of destruction looked at the fascinated King Quan Wong and knew that his goal had been achieved, and then turned around and said to the high priest. Master god of destruction, are you going to abandon the Loon family? Weiss's bitter appearance as a dead father made the great priest beside him speechless. I am a dignified priest, how can I have such a son? The great priest, who felt disgraced, sent Weiss back to the seventh universe with a wave of his hand. Ha ha ha, thank you the great priest, otherwise I don't know what to do if Weiss wants me to take him with me. The god of destruction laughed. It's okay, let's go, god of destruction. The great priest smiled slightly, and then broke open a void, revealing the dark alien space inside. As soon as the god of destruction stepped in, he felt the enormous pressure and almost crushed himself to the ground. The different dimensional space around the king's realm is generally not suitable for cultivation because the gravity is too huge. Even among the priests, there are not many other than me who can stand up straight here. The great priest looked at the god of destruction in front of him. Although his legs were trembling slightly, the god of destruction who was still standing tall and straight nodded slightly. Well, good gravity, there is a great priest. The god of destruction learned from Weiss that there is one xenodimensional space around the entire king realm. But this is different from the different dimensional space of the seventh universe, and the size of this different dimensional space is infinite. That is, the great priest, the father of Weiss, spent hundreds of millions of years without exploring to the end. Weiss should have already told you that your range of activities should not be too large, otherwise you will have to work hard to find you. This is a communicator. If you want to come out, just contact me. After the great priest finished speaking, he dropped a small button, and after walking out of the alien space, he waved his hand to close the space crack. Hey, the time ratio is 10,000 to 1. I still can't open this space within 1,000 years, so I can live and eat. The god of destruction smashed the button in his hand after laughing at himself, and was still on the ground. Immediately came to an open space, began a long practice. Temple of All Kings. The great priest who just closed the space crack seemed to sense something, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. God of Destruction, you have really changed. I just don't know if you can break through this cage. The great priest glanced deeply at King Quan and the two guards who were still watching cartoons. P.S. There is one more update today at 11 o'clock. According to the agreement, for every 2,000 flowers, one more chapter, 500 evaluation votes, one more chapter, 5 rewards, one more chapter. Don't ask me why I say that, that's it capricious. Explode the data, wait until there are 14,000 flowers, and add more when there are 3,000 evaluation votes. Chapter 36. 1 year, Katara. In the 9th universe, in the starry sky, Chitara was destroying the starry sky in the universe with a look of anger. Lord Chitara, if you destroy like this at will, if Lord Quanwong finds out, you will be punished. The priest of the 4th universe is a big man with a cool hairstyle. Damn, it's King Quan again. King Tiantian, King Quan is just a child, Chitara said with a big mouth, but the action stopped and continued to destroy. Okay, don't make trouble anymore, Lord Chitara. Should your work be completed soon, you know that you still have tens of millions of planets waiting to be destroyed. The priest immediately took out a list that was hundreds of meters longer than the original list of the God of Destruction. So much. When am I going to do it? Chitara shuddered with fright. Not much time, just a few hundred years. Well, the slower you go, the more work you will have to do. The big Han priest urged. At this moment, a cone-shaped object suddenly slid across the starry sky, and hit his ear with a slap when the Kitai mouse was so defenseless. Kitai mouse only felt a sharp pain, and when he touched his ears, he found that one of his ears was missing. The most terrible thing is that he actually found that his divine power could not repair his ears. What's going on? What happened to Konik? Frightened and angry, he could only ask the priest Konik aloud. I didn't see it either. Konik's expression was also solemn, and he had already vaguely guessed who moved the hand. What? Even you didn't see it? How could this be possible? Chitara was stunned. It was normal to say that she didn't see it. After all, she was a rookie, but even Konik didn't see it, so the matter was serious. At the same time, in the Quanwong Palace, Quanwong was holding what looked like a pistol in one direction. Ha ha ha, hit, I hit the damn ear. King Quan jumped happily, and the picture beside him just happened to freeze on the ear where the black cat sheriff shot off one ear. Master Quanwong is really good at shooting. He hits with one shot. The grand priest smiled beside him. Being praised by the great priest, King Quan raised his right hand domineeringly, revealing his little pig Peppa. Clap clap clap. The two guards and the great priest all quickly applauded. At this moment, King Jaeon felt more respected than being King Jaeon. But after doing all this, King Jaeon starts to look like the remaining black cat sheriff again. And this time, King Quan saw his mother-in-law with one ear, rushed into the police station, and killed the white cat sheriff. Suddenly, King Quan, who had already substituted himself into the role of the black cat sheriff, was completely angry. 1 year is really hateful. If that's the case, let him disappear. King Quan made the two guards and the high priest speechless with the appearance of righteousness. This god of destruction is really terrifying. Just such a small video made Lord Quanwong so excited. It seems that Katara is doomed this time. The three of them thought so at the same time. And far in the 4th universe's destruction god realm, Chitara, who was still expending her power of destruction to expel the remaining power on her ears so that she could grow ears, suddenly felt that the god of destruction in her body had actually cracked. Immediately, all the souls of Chitara were taken, and the god of destruction was bestowed upon him by the king of destruction when he was chosen as the god of destruction. If the godhead of destruction is completely broken, it means that his long lifespan has reached the limit. And the consequence of reaching the limit is to turn into double Lois. Kornik, hurry up and help. Terrified, He hurriedly called Konik for help. However, this time Konik seemed to have received some order, and was unmoved by Chitara's call for help. Crack! A shattering sound reached Chitara's ears, and then his feet began to turn into dust under Chitara's terrified eyes. People who don't understand the energy of time can't resist the erosion of time after all. Lord Chitara, this time you've provoked someone you shouldn't provoke. Konik's sighing words reached Chitara's ears, and then Chitara turned into ashes unwillingly. At the same time, the World King God of the Fourth Universe also looked at his slowly disappearing body with a bewildered expression. Lord Chitara is actually dead. He couldn't believe that Chitara, who stood on the top of the universe, was actually dead. But no matter how unbelievable he was, he and Chitara turned into Lois together. As for the destruction of the God realm, the figure of the great priest also flew down from the sky after Chitara died. I have seen the great priest. Konik respectfully said to the high priest. Excuse the courtesy, this time I'm here to talk about the selection of the next god of destruction. Lord Quanwang doesn't have any good candidates right now, and you don't have any talented people in the fourth universe, so the position of god of destruction will be temporary. Vacancy until the king has a new candidate. Quote. The great priest said slowly. Well, I understand, since I will take over the work of the god of destruction during this period, and I will personally go to Xingrenqing to find the god of realm. After Konik finished speaking, the high priest nodded slightly, and then disappeared. At the same time, the news of Chitara's death also reached the ears of the god of destruction. Everyone is right, god of destruction is listed as the number one person who can't be messed with. And time quickly passed hundreds of years. Chapter 37. I just don't like you. Oh, god of destruction is really true. It's been hundreds of years, and I don't know how to come back to see people. People are getting old waiting here. Weiss sat by the small lake boredly playing with his scepter. HMPH, you still miss me. At this moment, a cold voice appeared behind Weiss. Weiss was shocked, and he didn't notice the arrival of the other party at all. But hearing the familiar voice, Weston got excited and turned around quickly. Ho ho ho, it's the god of destruction. I thought you didn't want me anymore. You look at people waiting for you here every day, and they have wrinkles. Weiss started to cry while talking. You start for Lao Su, I didn't say I want you, just go as far as you want. The god of destruction kicked Weiss with a speechless kick. Weiss, who originally wanted to escape, suddenly found himself unable to move, and was immediately kicked in the ass by the god of destruction. Oh, god of destruction, what are you kicking people for? Weiss rubbed his butt and looked at the god of destruction in front of him resentfully. But his heart was very shocked. Because god of destruction didn't even use a single bit of Zizai Jigong, he kicked himself, and he didn't even react at all. Even the space-time energy is useless. This means that the time-space energy of the god of destruction has been understood much higher than himself. Ha ha ha, it's just not pleasing to the eyes of you. The god of destruction laughed. He has wanted to kick Weiss for a long time, but unfortunately, this dog started using the ultimate free will power, and when he finally understood the second-order free extreme power, then he started to use the space-time energy. This time he successfully walked out from the different dimension of the whole king realm relying on his own strength. This kid Weiss is no longer his opponent. I am very comfortable today. I decided to destroy 2 planets for fun. The god of destruction smiled slightly. He had planned it, and this time happened to be when Frieza was born. As a colleague who also likes to break things, how could the god of destruction not meet the king? Yes, the god of destruction has changed. You didn't know how to hit people before, but now you don't show mercy. Weiss rubbed his butt, said a grudge, and then took his scepter. Well, Weiss, you misunderstood me. The god of destruction sighed. Weiss's eyes lit up. Hey, is the god of destruction trying to coax people? No, I have to be reserved and not be deceived by the rhetoric of the god of destruction. Just when Weiss secretly rejoiced in his heart, the voice of the god of destruction came again. You really misunderstood me. My motherfucker didn't show mercy before. Okay, wow kakaka. God of Destruction's cunning joke finally made Whis, who had never been angry for the first time, angry for the first time. You, God of Destruction, you are too bullying, yin yin yang. Weiss covered his face and cried. Fuck you, don't talk too much, don't cry, go and work. The God of Destruction is one big and too big. If I knew it earlier, I wouldn't tease him. Unfortunately, this time Weiss still did not recover. Okay, don't cry, let's find something delicious, okay. Helpless, God of Destruction can only really coax Wes. It seems that he heard the delicious food, and Weston paused, but he seemed to think that this delicious food was not enough, and cried again. Seeing this situation, the God of Destruction broke down in cold sweat. Okay, the big deal is to grab the cosmetics for 2 planets for you, okay. The God of Destruction deliberately said the words, cosmetics, loudly, for fear that Weiss couldn't hear him. Sure enough, Weiss's cries suddenly subsided. 3 planets. Weiss' cries were a little quieter. Damn, 10 planets, grab any more by yourself. The God of Destruction was angry and said his final bottom line. Immediately, Weiss put his hand down, and rushed towards the God of Destruction in surprise, trying to pick up the God of Destruction. Fortunately, the God of Destruction reacted quickly, and came to Weiss's back in an instant. Ho 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 ho, God of Destruction is what you say, but I remember it, let's go shopping. Saying that, Weiss pulled up the God of Destruction and instantly turned into a light and left the God of Destruction realm. In the void, there was only the wrath of the God of Destruction. Ellipsis 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 ellipsis. Ellipsis 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 ellipsis. In the endless starry sky, on an eternally frozen planet. A tall man with long horns was anxiously looking at a huge iceberg ahead. Beside him stood a young child. Dad, when will my brother come out? I've been waiting for 100 years and I'm still inside. The child said to his father curiously. P.S. If you have a monthly pass, remember to send a few to Shanyu. Shanyu is grateful, King Frieza is coming out, please look forward to it. Chapter 38, Frieza. Crack. At this moment, the sound of an ice cube breaking came from the huge iceberg in front of the 2 father and son. Kurd's expression suddenly became very excited. Because he felt the breath of the mutant frozen demon family from the iceberg. This is the breath that only he and his eldest son Beulah have. Ha ha ha, it is indeed my seed. My Kurdish family is going to add another powerful child. No one knows the power of the mutant frozen demon family better than him. He is different from ordinary frozen demons. The mutants have infinite potential. As long as they practice, they can continue to become stronger. The ordinary frozen demon family is limited by the potential of birth. Is my brother coming out? I'm really curious, what will my brother look like? The young Beulah didn't have the life and death of Frieza in the later period, so now he is still relatively happy that his younger brother was born. Boom. At this moment, the iceberg shattered, and a thin figure rose into the sky. My old man came out. After a few somersaults in the air, Frieza charged towards the ground like a meteorite. Ha ha ha, my child's son is really amazing, he will fly as soon as he is born. Chilled laughed and looked at Frieza who was falling straight in front of him. Brother is amazing. Beulah also clapped her palm happily. And the cosmic emperor in the sky slammed into the ground at a high speed. Both father and son were laughing happily, boasting that the emperor of the universe was talented. The laughter ended abruptly after a roar. I saw the emperor of the universe inserted directly into the ground, leaving only one tail exposed. The 2 Kurds were stunned. Mass, if you say that you are talented, you will fly when you are born. What is the situation? Kurd's mouth twitched. Wow. A loud cry suddenly woke Kurd and Beulah. The two hurriedly ran over to scrape the bruised-faced Cosmic Emperor out of the ice. Looking at the dying Cosmic Emperor, the two big men Kurd and Beulah scratched their heads and smiled awkwardly. "Dad, why don't you take my brother to the treatment cabin for treatment first?" Beulah followed Kurd, who was holding the Cosmic Emperor, giggling and didn't speak for a long time, and couldn't help reminding him. Almost forgot. Kurd quickly took out the controller and summoned the spaceship hovering in the sky. After placing the Cosmic Emperor in the nutrition compartment, Kurd quickly took out the combat effectiveness tester and tested it. Combat power, 50,000 inches. After seeing the data, Kurd was silent. This is the level of the babies of the ordinary frozen family. Not much difference. Wow, my brother is so weak. Beulah's words made Kurd's face a little ugly. It seems to be a failure. I can't think of being happy for nothing. Kurd looked at the Cosmic Emperor like a little old man and spat in disdain. There is no excitement at all. Combat power 100,000 inches. Suddenly, the combat effectiveness tester suddenly rang, causing Kurd to be stunned for a moment. 100,000. What's going on? Could it be that the Emperor of the Universe has the ability to hide his breath? Kurd frowned slightly. Combat power, 130,000 inches. Suddenly there was another siren. It's still going up. A smile appeared at the corner of Kurd's mouth. A beeping sound reached Kurd's ears, and it didn't take long for the Cosmic Emperor's combat power to reach 200,000. At this moment, the Emperor of the Universe suddenly emitted a dazzling light. After the light passed, a Cosmic Emperor who was slightly larger than the beginning appeared in front of the two father and son to show grace. And this is the final form of the Emperor of the Universe. Transformation. You can master a form at such a young age. No wonder the strength is so low. It turned out to be hidden. Kurd was excited, knowing that his ancestors had researched several generations of talents in order to study the function of transformation. And if Kurd knew that the reason why his ancestors studied transformation was only because the god of destruction wanted to see transformation at that time, in order to please the god of destruction in the future, they have been researching transformation since thousands of years ago. In the end, it was researched that such a nondescript transformation has no effect on improving strength at all. Instead, he sealed his own power. Chapter 39. The bear boy was kicked in the head by a man who fell violently in front of the iceberg. What are you? While Kurd was still secretly happy, little Jungtai Frieza pointed to Kurd and Beulah and asked. Immediately, Kurd and Beulah were stunned, only to see Frieza with his hands on his hips, looking at his brother with a tugging look. Dad, how did my brother say we are things? We are not things. Beulah asked innocently. Damn, what do you mean by me is not a thing? We are a thing. No bah, your brother just needs to be beaten to know. Kurd was instantly angry, and he was actually scolded by this little brat in front of him, and beating himself was the Emperor of the Universe. And Beulah, who was beside him, also remembered the fact that Frieza owed a beating to the bottom of his heart. Played Frieza a lot after that. Brush. Suddenly, Kurd appeared behind Frieza's bar and lifted his tail. Wow, let go of this uncle, are you courting death? Frieza's little feet kicked wildly. Beulah saw this scene and ran over happily, but Foley suddenly sneered. The little foot swept away, and it was a foot according to Beulah's face. In an instant, Beulah flew upside down towards the iceberg behind with a grim expression. Boom. Wow, Kaka, you still want to touch me? Frieza smugly looked at Beulah, who was slowly walking out of the iceberg, with her little hands on her hips. You kid is very angry. Suddenly, Frieza's chrysanthemum tightened, and suddenly he felt the big man who was holding his tail talking behind his back. Forgive the brave man, I am young and ignorant, and the chrysanthemum is still very loose. You see, the chrysanthemum that I just knocked out must be pretty good. Frieza's flattering look left Kurd speechless. Paralyzed, are all children so lewd these days? He couldn't say these blatant words. No, there's something wrong. This kid didn't drink Mengpo soup when he was reincarnated. Kurt finally found out that he was abnormal. This kid was just born. Even if he was talented, he couldn't be so smart. Boy, say, who the hell are you? How can a newborn child be so smart? The Kurdish words surprised Frieza. Paralyzed, I can't be smart by nature. Look at you guys. You are big and three rough. At first glance, you are a person with a simple mind and developed limbs. Mrs. Frieza sneered, saying that Kurd felt that his IQ was really not enough. No, I'm the first mutant in the history of the Frozen Demon Clan. How could I not have enough IQ? The only possibility is. With that, Kurd hurriedly put Frieza down. Ha ha ha, as expected of my son, his IQ is high. From now on, you can follow your father and I will conquer the world. Remember, your name is Frieza. Kurd felt that his genes must be too good to give birth to such a child with extraordinary IQ. And looking at Kurd's appearance, Frieza smiled disdainfully. What a stupid person, how can I have such a father? Little Jung's wife, Frieza, looked at the arrogant Kurd and smiled disdainfully. Damn, Frieza, I'm going to kill you. At this moment, Beulah ran over from the iceberg and charged towards Frieza with his fists clenched. Mom, is this brother so fierce? Frieza was startled and quickly hid behind Kurd. Okay, Beulah, how old are you, and you don't practice well, look at you, even your brother can mention you. Kurd waved his hand and stopped Beulah, who wanted to bully him. Beulah was immediately unhappy and looked at Frieza angrily, but because of Kurd's majesty, Beulah didn't say anything. A little bit, quote. Frieza made a face as she looked at Beulah, whose face was green with anger. Beulah, who was so angry with this action, almost fainted. And Frieza looked at Beulah, who didn't dare to move, and even died. With two hands on Kurd's thigh. One foot was raised towards Beulah and kicked. This cheap look made Kurd frown. Beulah looked down at Frieza who was kicking at his leg, trembling more and more all over. And Frieza was still kicking. Frieza, I want you to die. Beulah exploded in an instant, turning into a purple light and shadow, and instantly appeared in front of Frieza, and fell over his shoulder, knocking Frieza to the ground. Then there was a mad kick to Frieza's head. Boom boom boom. A roar spread throughout the entire frozen star. We agreed to add 2 chapters. Today is the 5th watch, and now it is the 3rd watch. There are still 2 more. Everyone, please give the flower tickets to Shanyu, thank you very much. Chapter 40, do you think this service will work? In the endless starry sky, a stream of light flashed, and the figures of the god of destruction and Wes appeared in the starry sky, and the two of them saw Frieza on the ground being kicked wildly. Aiya, this frozen demon clan is so violent, even children are not spared, it's just. Weiss smiled and covered his mouth. What is it? The god of destruction looked at Whis' smiling face and knew that this fellow must not be grieved for Frieza. It's so cute, look at the kid who was beaten, is it the same as the god of destruction when he was a child? He's the kind of person who wants to beat him, hoo. Weiss covered his mouth with a smirk. Immediately, the god of destruction's face darkened. Weiss, do you also want to try the taste of shoulder smashing? Maybe the millennium killing is also good. I think you are very suitable for this. God of Destruction said to Wes with a smile. And his gloomy face suddenly changed Weiss' face. God of Destruction, you can't do this, I'm just joking, the millennium kill is definitely not suitable for me. Saying that, Weiss hurriedly slipped into the distance while clutching his chrysanthemum. Okay, stop talking nonsense, let's go and see if the Frozen Demon Clan has really grown a bit. After a cold snort, the god of destruction flew down toward the ground with his hands behind his back. Weiss breathed a sigh of relief and dived toward the ground. And Beulah finally lifted his foot without any thought after kicking dozens of feet wildly. Bah, scum. After spitting at Frieza, who looked like a dead dog, Beulah walked over to Kurd and stood. There was a huge pothole ahead, and Frieza lying on the ground pretending to be a dead dog. Hey, if your brother is so good, kill him, otherwise it would be a waste of food to keep it. Looking at Frieza Kurd, who still wanted to touch porcelain, he sneered. Brush. In an instant, Frieza came to the edge of the big pit and looked around in confusion. Ah, who is your younger brother? Bro, you are so handsome. Is your younger brother also handsome and suave? Of course, you are definitely more handsome than your younger brother, but we are all brothers, so why kill each other, right? Quote. Frieza's flattering look doesn't look like the charismatic emperor of the universe hundreds of years later. He is completely a bully and fear of hardship. Humph. Beulah, who originally thought she would have a lovely younger brother, is now completely disappointed. After a cold snort, Beulah did not speak anymore, but turned her head away and ignored Frieza. At this moment, two figures suddenly and slowly floated down from the sky. Kurd discovered their arrival only when he saw two figures. Suddenly Kurd's brows furrowed. However, Kurd frowned after seeing the image of the god of destruction. Meow Mi image, golden hole, followed by a pseudo-mother entourage. Thinking of the information written on his ancestral home, Kurd broke out in cold sweat. You are the god of destruction. Kurd's scream made little Frieza stunned, and he looked up quickly, only to see Whis and the god of destruction floating above his head. Nani, dare to stand on the head of my uncle Frieza. Look at my chrysanthemum fist. Frieza jumped up and punched Whis, chrysanthemum. Immediately, Whis' face turned purple. Are other people's chrysanthemums so attractive? Everyone wants to hug me chrysanthemums. Of course Whis couldn't be hit, and of course he didn't need to shoot. Just as Frieza saw Whis' ass close in front of him, a sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth. Suddenly, a flower appeared in front of his eyes, and a white figure suddenly blocked in front of him. At the same time, he pinched his head. After feeling a huge force, Frieza felt a sharp pain all over her body. I saw that Frieza was being kicked around by Beulah and Kurd as a ball. The strength of his feet was not at all merciful because he was his own son. Lord God of Destruction, look, can this strength work? Kurd also smiled at the god of destruction with a flattering face, and that expression was exactly the same as Frieza's expression just now. At this moment, Beulah finally knew why his younger brother was so wretched, and his feelings were inherited. Well, it's not bad, it's even better if you focus on it. P.S. Chapter 4, there is one more, and more will be added when there is a flower, and it will continue to explode tomorrow.